Hi everyone, my name is Morgan. I'm also Miss Clark County, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to build your personal brand with LinkedIn. So just to give a little introduction of myself, I recently graduated from the University of Nevada, Reno with a bachelor's degree in computer science and computer engineering, as well as minors in mathematics and entrepreneurship. I've worked at 3 startups, I've worked at a couple of venture capital funds, also interned at Disney 6 times, and I'm starting my full-time post-grad job in a month at Shopify as an apprentice product manager. And my alias or nickname is That LinkedIn Girl, and the whole reason being is that I'm an influencer and a content creator on LinkedIn. I have over 58,000 followers on the platform and over 16 million views. I have a newsletter. I'm also a LinkedIn top voice for Gen Z, and I'm also one of the youngest ever LinkedIn learning instructors. So kind of getting into the why I'm doing this today and why you should build a personal brand, but before I get to the why, we have to first discuss who. So who should build a personal brand? Number one is builders. And when I say builders, I kind of use that term broadly. So innovators, entrepreneurs, etc. You're building the products, services, and infrastructure of the future. And climbers. Climbers meaning corporate climbers. And I mean ladder climbers. I don't mean that in a negative way. Just climbing the ladder in corporate, government, NPO, or NGO, the NGO world. You're climbing the ladders of the companies and organizations that prop up the economy. And lastly is creators. This is your podcasters, YouTubers, TikTokers, influencers. You are creating the content that we consume on a daily basis. The thing is, more likely than not, you fall into at least one or more of these categories. Personally, I fall into all 3. I own a business, I am also obviously working a corporate job, and I'm also a creator. So because you likely fall into one or more of these categories, we're basically talking about everyone. Everyone can benefit from building a personal brand. Now that we've discussed the who, let's get to why. So why should you build a personal brand? The first thing is increasing your visibility and your credibility. No matter what path you're intent on pursuing, its success is going to rely on one of these 2 things, visibility and credibility. I have a friend, Daniel, who's also a creator, and he likes to call this increasing your luck surface area. And that goes into leveraging your name for opportunities. So think of like common household name brands, Starbucks, Costco, Nike, all of those things have instant brand name recognition. And when you think of, depending on how you feel, especially about coffee, Starbucks could have a really good connotation for you. For me, I love Starbucks. I'm a Starbucks girly for life. But even the same thing with like Dutch Bros, Peet's Coffee, all of that stuff. When you have that instant brand name recognition, there are some thoughts that come with it. If you could do the same thing for your own name when your name comes up in conversations, that can lead to opportunities. And that is what my friend Daniel refers to as increasing your luck surface area. The more people know your name and the more people know you for good things, the more quote unquote luck you will have in getting opportunities. And you can leverage that name brand recognition for basically any kind of opportunity you seek, whether that's a job, an investment for your company, or even speaking engagements. You can pretty much leverage anything you want out of building a personal brand. Lastly, it is enduring and you own it. When you work a job and you are creating things, you're creating deliverables, you're creating artifacts, if you ever leave, quit, whatever, that job, you don't own the things that you created anymore. All of that IP belongs to your employer, and it's the same thing if whether you work in corporate, government, nonprofit space, etc. Whereas with a personal brand, you own it, and it lasts for as long as you want it to last. And your interests will likely change and evolve as well as your goals. However, your personal brand can change with that, and you have 100% ownership of it no matter what you're doing with it. So let's get into the basics of building out your LinkedIn profile. These are just really hardcore basics. Make sure that every section of your profile is filled out. Have a profile photo, don't be that person. And the reason I emphasize that so much is because when a lot of people don't have their photo on your profile, it depends on who you are, but it may be a privacy thing, but whatever it is, having a profile photo can convince people, first of all, you're not a bot, but it also gives a little bit of color and a little bit of personality to your profile. Your header and your headline, your header photo and your headline should give a 5-second overview of you, and I'll show a specific example in a second. Your about section should be an elevator pitch of you, what you have to offer, and why people should hire you, connect with you, or invest in you, etc. Your experience section should be consistent with your resume, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And in your skills section, you can also get endorsements from friends, colleagues, managers, etc. And you can also get recommendations from those same colleagues, partners, clients, etc. And this is the way to make your LinkedIn profile robust. So getting into the nitty-gritty of the profile basics, your about section, everyone struggles because it's like, what do I write in this giant section, this giant blank white space? Tell people your story. Make it like an elevator pitch. And if you don't know how to give an elevator pitch or you don't have one prepared, the easiest way to go is using the past, present, future format, although not necessarily always in that order. Your story is comprised of your past, present, and future. And so what I like to do, specifically in a job interview, is I'll talk about what I'm doing in the present. When I was interviewing for jobs in college, I would say, I'm pursuing my degree at this university. I'm studying this, I have done this many internships in the past, and this is what I'm doing right now. And the most important thing when you're talking about your present is talk about what you're working on. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you've already achieved, but what you're working on. Then you can go into your past and talk about what you have already achieved and what you've already done in the past. And then tie all of that together into the future that, not just the future you want, but the future you desire. And if that's a job interview, that future will likely be the job that you want. If you're talking to an investor, that will be the investment that they could give you. So I talked about creating the perfect profile photo. You don't need to have professional headshots to do this. I still to this day have never had professional headshots done, especially when we have all of the technology that we have, as well as AI, which is super, super useful. No, you're good. I just want to give you guys a second to walk in. So easiest way to create a professional looking profile photo is if you have an iPhone, take a photo using portrait mode on iPhone. If you don't have one, grab your friend. You probably have at least one friend that has an iPhone with portrait mode. Remove the background using a website like remove.bg. Doesn't really matter which one, just use something that's free. Lastly, and this is kind of optional, you can change your outfit using Canva Magic Edit. That's what I did. In the first picture you see above, it was summertime. I was wearing a tank top, but I was like, you know what? I don't want my profile photo to have me in a tank top. So I used Canva Magic Edit to draw over it, and you can see in the second photo, it looks like I'm wearing like a white long sleeve blouse. You can also add in a plain color, ombre color, or your location background. Whatever it is, just make sure it's not distracting. And that's what you can end up with by using these tactics. So I talked about creating a killer header photo, and that's the big rectangular section you have above your profile photo and above your profile on LinkedIn. When you get LinkedIn, it gives you like this default cool teal geometric shape background, and that's fine, and it's fine if you want to just use an arbitrary photo, but in my opinion that is doing yourself a disservice because it's the first thing people are going to see. It's a header photo, it's the headline, it's the visual headline, and so it's the first thing people are going to see when they go on your profile. So if you want to make a good first impression, utilize that space. Match with your color scheme and your font kit. So I would advise just early on, before you even sit down and do this, figure out what your theme colors are, figure out what your theme fonts are. For me, I really love the colors of teal and blue because I find them very calming, and so if I find them very calming, then I figure other people will too, and so that's why I chose that color scheme. But you can do pretty much anything you want. Design it with something easy and free like Figma or Canva. Add your name, your tagline of who you are. This is an old header of mine, but my tagline is Gen Z creator, speaker, and storyteller, which is really long. And then your accolades, awards, and recognitions. So you can see some of the things that I've been featured in and some of the things that I'm known for. And the as seen in thing is just if you've been featured in press before, it gives a really good sense of legitimacy if you have been featured in press before. So it's really important to include that. So now getting into actually building a personal brand. So before you start getting into the nitty-gritty of making content, first you have to create your online persona and your brand vibe. The easiest way to do this in the way that I do it, as you can probably tell from this presentation, I'm a big Canva geek. So you can create a brand kit in Canva that basically just saves the fonts that you use frequently, the colors that you use frequently, and this would be primary, secondary, and accent. You can kind of tell by like these slides that my primary is like a certain blue, my secondary is like a lighter or a darker blue, and then my accent color is black. Know your value proposition. This will shape how you speak, interact, and share content. And when I say value proposition, I mean that in the exact sense of like a business value proposition. Figure out what you have that's unique to offer the world and to offer other people. And if you really want to get it down to the basics, figure out how can I provide value to someone? What, in a sense of knowledge or experience, could I provide to someone? Identify your catchphrases. Being a Gen Z and being 21, I think a lot of my catchphrases are very Gen Z cliches, but it kind of, we are who we are, right? But you could also start coining things and making your trademarks. Like for example, the whole story behind the That LinkedIn Girl name is that I got teased and made fun of a little bit on campus when I first started creating LinkedIn content, because it was like, oh, you're that girl that's always posting on LinkedIn. Oh, you're that girl with all the photos and all that stuff on LinkedIn. And after a while, I thought it was really funny, and I also kind of just decided, I'm like, you know what, if this is what people are gonna know me for, I'm just gonna own it. And so I bought the thatlinkedingirl.com domain, and that's kind of just what I'm known as. Create templates for each type of content you might put out, so whether that's email, social media posts. The reason that's important is because you want to create a sense of cohesiveness within your brand. And again, that's all using your brand colors and your brand fonts. You could also have certain photo and graphic types to go along with your posts. I have kind of developed this signature style on LinkedIn. If you go on my LinkedIn, you can see that all of my posts more or less kind of look the same visually. It's usually like a grid of like 4 photos with an overlay that looks like a tweet, but it's not really a tweet because I'm not on Twitter. So now let's actually talk about creating content on LinkedIn. These are the 3 key elements to writing content that converts and builds community. Number 1 is telling stories. I think a lot of people too often get lost in the sauce on LinkedIn because they're obsessed with writing the right thing. There is no such thing as the right thing, and if you try to write like someone else, that's not good, because you have something unique to offer the world, and that's why people are going to read your stuff. And also, like, oh boy, you know, creating content with AI is a very, you know, sketchy line, but even then, it's kind of tough because AI doesn't really tell stories, it just shares things, and that's kind of why some of that content doesn't perform super well. But if you tell your own stories and you angle everything in a storytelling manner, that's content that'll actually convert, and not only convert, but it'll build community around you. The second thing is be controversial, and I don't say that in the sense of, you know, go on and say something super politically polarizing on a podcast. I don't mean that. I personally have never, and probably will never do that. But when I say be controversial, you just pick an issue that you're really passionate about and take a side on it, and no matter what, be willing to die on that hill. For me, for example, a hill I'm always willing to die on is getting diversity, equity, inclusion, and also balancing out the gender ratio in tech. That is a hill that I will die on forever. I don't care who comes at me for that. And another thing that I never thought would be controversial was pay transparency. I made a LinkedIn post about how every industry should have pay transparency, and apparently that's a very controversial thing, and it started this fight in my comments, and before I knew it, I went viral and had over 125,000 impressions on LinkedIn. That just goes to show you, though, it wasn't my intention to be controversial. It just happened to be because I took a stand on something and I stood my ground, but those type of things start conversations. And that's why it's important to be able to stand your ground on something, because when you're having that conversation, if you decide to go fight in the comments, you better be ready to die on that hill. And when I say all of this, I don't mean be controversial for the sake of being controversial. I mean express your honest views publicly, because sometimes those things will be controversial, but that's what starts conversations. And on LinkedIn, that's what the platform is all about, is starting a conversation and a dialogue. Lastly is build in public. This is kind of a weird one for me because I am a person that loves to move in stealth, but when it came to building my platform on LinkedIn, it all started from building in public. I wasn't building a company, I wasn't building a product, I was building my career. I was talking about, you know, going through, I've even ranted on LinkedIn before about getting rejected and going through application processes that are absolutely brutal. But the reason it does so well, I made a post one time that was like this graphic of like all of my rejection emails compiled with a big gray overlay over it that just said rejected. And I think the post got over like 60,000 impressions, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. But the whole reason that it went, you know, micro viral was because I was sharing my honest thoughts in public, and people were seeing. And at the time, I had already had a decent following, and I had already had a pretty big brand, and people could see I'm still human, I'm still a real person, and this stuff still happens. But showing that vulnerability and showing everything that goes on behind the scenes in building in public is a really good way to make people become loyal to you. That's how you build a loyal community. So this is pretty much like probably the most exciting thing in my presentation. But earlier this year, you know, I've been doing this for over 3 years. And after 3 years, you kind of figure out what makes a post viral and what gives it that viral quality. And I've proven it for myself multiple times. And everyone's always asked me, you know, have you ever had like a super viral moment on LinkedIn? And the answer is no. I had a friend at my school who posted about his first day at NASA. Never posted on LinkedIn before. He had over 1 million reactions and over 5 million impressions and over 5,000 followers overnight. and he didn't post after that. And it killed me to watch it because I was like, oh my gosh, dude, you have so much momentum and you're not doing anything with it. I have never had that kind of virality. I think the most I've ever gotten on LinkedIn is probably around 250,000 impressions, which some people would classify as viral. For me, by my standards, it's not quite there. But what I have been able to do is produce micro-virality consistently. I can consistently get 20 to 40,000 impressions on a daily, and I can consistently get 100 to 200,000 impressions on the weekly basis. So this post formula is from what I've experimented with. The thing is, though, I had never tested it out for anyone else. I'd only ever tested it out for myself. But I was teaching a workshop at Harvard WeCode, which was a conference at Harvard back in February, and I taught this formula, and one of my students in the workshop actually used it and went viral. She had over 100,000 impressions within one day using this formula. So what it is your headline and your hook. It's just basically the same thing. But you want to reel the reader in. Yes, the fishing pun. It's the LinkedIn equivalent of clickbait. The thing is, on LinkedIn, they only show the first 3 lines of your post, both on desktop and on mobile. The problem is on mobile, you have even less screen real estate to work with. So if somebody doesn't see, like if you don't catch the reader's attention within the first 3 lines of your post, you're toast. Your post is not going anywhere. And so it's really important to reel the reader in that first 3 lines. The second thing is tell a story with your post. Explain why you're qualified to give takeaways and why people should listen. This is half of the battle on LinkedIn. People who are seeing your content for the first time, which is hopefully who you'd want to be reaching, brand new people, they have no reason to listen to you or believe what you're saying or think that you have any credibility in what you're saying. So within your post, you have to tell a story that establishes and answers the question, why should I listen to you? Why are you credible in this topic? And that's what Michelle did in this post. She was saying how she is a student, she went to Harvard WeCode, and she literally came to my workshop an hour and a half early just so she could get a seat. And unfortunately, our workshop filled up, but she offered this comprehensive, like she's a great note taker, she offered this comprehensive notes list in a form of a digital product for free if people would comment on her post. And that's what she did. She dropped a valuable freebie / lead magnet and prompted people to do her CTA, which was commenting their email. Not only did she build basically an email list that day, but she also got a bunch of comments and it made her post go viral. So the second kind of reason you should be posting content on LinkedIn, even if it's not to build a following, to get followers, is establishing thought leadership. I'm 21 years old. Most of my career has been just trying to get people to take me seriously, and that's really difficult to do. However, the best way to do this is by establishing thought leadership, which is basically consistently putting out content that establishes you as not an expert, but a thought leader in your field. And I really like to embrace that word because I truly don't think anyone is an expert. There's always more to learn in your field. And basically being a thought leader is embracing that idea that you always have something more to learn, but you're willing to share everything that you learn and everything that you do know as you learn. So pick 3 topics that you want to talk about. These are the 3 things that you'd put in your profile as like hashtag topic. Try to stick your content to these 3 topics. For me, as of the moment, it's all about college, early careers, and personal branding. Write a healthy mix of short, medium, and long form content, and on LinkedIn that could basically be like, short form is like 3 sentences, medium form is like 300 to 400 words, and then long form is like an article. Remember, it's not about being an expert, it's about being a thought leader. It's okay to put your ideas and your thoughts out there, even if you're not sure if you're right. And there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong. Just say what you think and what is your opinion, your perspective. And if it happens to be wrong later, that's okay. That's the whole point of being a thought leader. Capitalize on trending news, topics, and content. So during that time when I was talking about pay transparency, it was a really hot topic because there was legislation being passed about pay transparency. And so I capitalized on that opportunity and I was featured in a LinkedIn news storyline. And that's how you can start not only building your audience organically, but really getting some fuel on the fire via PR. Lastly is tell stories. I keep saying it over and over again. The reason being is this is what makes it unique and personal. Why should anyone stop to read on the internet, scrolling? Why should anyone stop to read what you have to say? Well, the reason being is that no one has lived your life. No one has the experiences or the stories that you can tell. And moreover, no one has lived your life the way that you've lived it. So you have a unique perspective and a unique storytelling angle to share those stories. So tell stories with your content. Building up credibility in cloud. Like I said, most of my career has been purely about building credibility. And this might have some hot takes in here, but this is just my opinion. I went to UNR, and UNR is not exactly a brand name recognizable school. I don't get the same benefit of the doubt as a student who graduated from Harvard or Stanford, but that's okay because I built up my credibility and my career clout in a different way. That is by working at Fortune 500 companies and also working at startups and working at billion-dollar venture capital funds. You could also apply for recognitions and honors. Like a lot of people don't know, Forbes 30 under 30 is not something you just win. You apply for it just like a job. And very similar, like I've won other things, like I won this thing called Way Up's Top Intern of the Year last year, and that was again something I had to apply for. You can also get press and PR. So I've been featured in LinkedIn News, Business Insider, NPR, Fast Company, and there's actually a formula to do this. If you want to start getting featured in PR, there's a couple of sites you can use. There used to be a site called Haro, helpareporterout.com. There's also a new one that's kind of taking over the space called featured.com, and you can answer these call for quotes from journalists. You can also go about it kind of the manual way and go on LinkedIn. If you read CNBC, Business Insider, any of those things, look up articles that are in your space that you have opinions about, that you have knowledge about. Look at who the writer or the editor is and then connect with them on LinkedIn and then write them a personalized message that says, hey, I read this article that you wrote, I really loved it, blah, 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 I'd love to connect. I've done this before, and that's actually how I got my first feature in Business Insider. I established a relationship with a reporter. I kept commenting on her LinkedIn posts, and a lot of reporters actually do call for quotes on LinkedIn. And so I kept commenting on her posts, and one day she paid attention, and she was like, hey, I'd love to interview you for this thing. Not only did I get to be interviewed for the primary article, which was just basically a quote, and my name was briefly mentioned in it, her editor actually loved the article so much that they turned it into an entire piece about me. So it can be incredibly powerful.
What's the second site that you mentioned?
Featured.com. So it's just the word featured and then .com.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this next section is for the climbers, people that want to get jobs in corporate, government, NPO, or NGO space. Again, that's not to be a negative connotation. I am a climber. I am starting my corporate job in a month, so this is not meant in any negative way whatsoever. You can land a job or internship using LinkedIn Jobs. Personally, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn Jobs, and for the record, LinkedIn does not pay me to say any of what I say. I am really just this passionate about LinkedIn. You can use the search bars to filter by experience level, salary, job type, work arrangement. This is my favorite. You can use the under 10 applicants toggle to find less competitive roles. That's how I got a few of my very first interviews for internships in college. You can also create job alerts for job titles you're seeking, for example, product manager, software engineer, or engineering manager. You can also use the LinkedIn search feature. You can search keywords like hiring a software engineer intern or hiring a data scientist level 2. You can filter it to first connection so you can see who in your immediate network is hiring, or you can also filter it to second so you can see who in your maybe extended network is hiring. The thing is that this is what's called the hidden job market. The majority of jobs are not actually posted on public job boards, and instead they're circulated within people's networks, they're circulated internally, but this is a really good way to find jobs that are out there. Also send a cold DM on LinkedIn. Please note that this is primarily a tactic for landing a job or internship at startups or smaller companies of less than 100 people. Firstly, for startups, you could identify seed to Series C to G startups that you think you'd like to work at. The reason I say that is because I've been through it. I've worked at multiple startups. I've been asked to work at multiple startups, and I tend to find that working at a seed startup or working at a pre-seed startup is really difficult because you don't know if the company is going to be alive next month because they haven't been funded yet. And if you are like me and you're early on in your career, taking that kind of risk by working at a company like that is very, very risky. And so the way to de-risk it is identify a seed to Series C or G startups that have already been funded and likely have at least a year and a half left of lifespan. Find their CEO, their CTO, or their COO on LinkedIn, send them a message and say, hi, I absolutely love what you're building at company X, and then into your elevator pitch and tell them how you could provide value to them. You can also get recruiters to come to you via profile optimization. Recruiters use a product called LinkedIn Recruiter, and it functions very much like a search engine. LinkedIn SEO is very similar to Google SEO. If you search yourself on LinkedIn search and see where you rank, this is actually how you can see where you pop up. So, and this is really only applicable if you have a super common name. I have a really common name. If you search Morgan Young on LinkedIn, you're gonna see a lot of Morgan Youngs. But you can see where you rank up by, what search result you are. And LinkedIn's SEO is very similar to Google SEO in that the frequency of words in various sections on your LinkedIn is what's going to influence it. And so basically establish like 6 to 9 keywords that are relevant to jobs that you're looking for, and get at least one instance of each keyword on your profile. To give you a real example, when I was a freshman, I had no following. I did not have this platform. I just had a LinkedIn profile. I was dead set on landing a software engineering internships, so I basically put like software engineering and internship everywhere in my profile that I could get it. And that did optimize my profile for discoverability because I got messages like these. You can also get recruiters and hiring managers to come to you via posting content. I talked a little bit about creating content, but this is how you can specifically get recruiters and hiring managers to come to you. First of all, start posting content to improve your search ranking. If you put those same keywords I mentioned into the posts that you publish, you're going to rank even higher. You do not have to post a lot. Literally just start. Starting is the hardest part. You could post once per quarter, once per month, whatever works for you. And here's just like a couple simple ideas that you could use to get started. Share your experience at events like this one, ideas and thoughts around the career path that you're pursuing, or how you did things, landing interviews, offers, college admissions. This is kind of catered to students, but you get the idea. So this is for the builders, how to get investors and clients with LinkedIn. Start with what you know. You do not have to start from scratch when it comes to creating content. Then the primary reason you would want to be building a personal brand as a builder is to potentially get clients and investors for your product, service, or offering. And what you'd want to do here is build your brand in your area of expertise. Strive to become the thought leader and expert in your field/industry. And I talked about building in public before. In this case, you would be literally building your company in public. And I have some really great examples of this in this deck. So this first case study is about Greenlight AI. I used to work at Soma Capital, and this is a company that Soma Capital invested in. This is Will Lawrence. He is the CEO at Greenlight. He used to build anti-money laundering products at Meta and Paxos. Now he's building an AI compliance tool that is basically for teams in fintech. He graduated from YC in the Bay Area, and he also got a seed investment from Soma Capital. He spent years building up his credibility and his thought leadership in this space by posting content about it. Like you can see, he posted this amazing post about what money laundering is used for. And not only now has he established this entire client list from working in anti-money laundering to begin with, but now he has this huge audience on LinkedIn that knows about it. And that's actually partly how he got investments and got into YC. Building your company a cult following. You can build loyalty to your company through your personal brand. Some of the most iconic brands have cult followings. The best one, and probably the most obvious one I can think of, is Apple with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was incredibly charismatic, and the way that he talked at his keynotes and his presentations, he built a cult following and inspired. Talk to anyone with an Apple, they very much a cult following, myself included. And a cult following, basically what that means, it's not as creepy as it sounds, it basically means unwavering loyalty. You will see I have all Apple products. You can tell I'm part of that cult following. But it's very similar to influencers' relationships with their fans. A great example, other than Steve Jobs, is Beehive. This is Tyler Denk. He's the CEO and founder of Beehive. He previously led product at Google and Morning Brew, and he's currently the CEO of Beehive. They just raised their Series B of $33 million, led by another VC I used to work for, NEA, and they've hit 10 million ARR in less than 3 years. He has done an amazing job at building a cult following of his company Beehive on LinkedIn, and the way he did it was, number one, building in public. He talks about, he showed this graph of where they are with their ARR. He also does these things called product feature drops. You can very much tell he's kind of older Gen Z millennial because he talks about product feature drops like they're sneaker drops. But it's created this amazing cult following. People like me, I'm a Beehive user, are just waiting for him to drop product features. So this is an amazing example of building a cult following through your personal brand. So I talked about attracting investors, and the reason this works is you're letting investors know what kind of founder you are and why they would want to invest in you. Be vulnerable about the mistakes that you're making, and the reason that's useful is no VC wants to invest in a founder that thinks that they know everything. And sometimes in meetings, you're trying to get an investment. It can come off that way that you're one of those founders that thinks they know everything. And when you're being vulnerable and building in public on LinkedIn, that shows them that you are not. You're coachable and you're willing to learn. You can talk about the lessons you've learned, talk about failures and about pivots. Also a great green flag to investors is talking about pivoting, showing what you're passionate about. And you can also show off your traction and progress. Like I said, Tyler shows off his milestones every time they hit a new big thing in their ARR. They also show off their product features. Like I said, also a great way to show off your startup. You can also leverage your brand for PR. I talked about this a little bit, but again, just to reiterate, the way to do this is connect with journalists, creators, influencers, and media. And it's important to engage with people in such a way that doesn't make it feel like it's transactional. Getting PR is not about, one-off transactions, pitching yourself to a reporter. It's about building rapport with these reporters, constantly engaging with them on LinkedIn. Don't just connect with them for the sake of with the intention of, I want to get an article written about me by this person. Connect with them and actually engage with them when they post on LinkedIn or when they read an article. Read the article and then comment something about it. You can also get public speaking opportunities where you can represent your brand. I'm, like I said, 21, just graduated. I've done over 50 speaking engagements, and it's all because of the personal brand that I've built. And not only that, so it's a little bit different for me because I'm not actively building like a tech company or a startup or anything. And so when I go to speak, it's I've been very fortunate enough to be a paid keynote speaker. But for people that are, wanting opportunities to market their companies at events, this is how you can get it. Now this is for the creators, building your credibility as a creatorpreneur and getting really insane opportunities. Now let me just start here by saying I never intended on becoming a creator. It was really something that I fell into, and they say follow the money and follow the momentum. That's what I did. I started creating content purely with the intention of building a reputation and credibility in the technology space so that I could get jobs in tech. It worked. I got my amazing job offer at Shopify via my LinkedIn. I also got other job offers via my LinkedIn as well. And so I did that. But at the same time, I kind of got into this space where I was creating content that was performing really well. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll embrace the whole content creator thing and I'll just do it. And now it's morphed into something a lot more. I've done, a million different things with my content. Namely, I've done the typical creator monetization things like brand partnerships and all that stuff. But the thing is that now that I've been a creator for about 3 years, I've wanted to take a step beyond that. I don't want to just be a creator anymore, and I don't want to just create things for the sake of getting likes and comments. I want to actually build things. But the thing is, building an audience is one thing, building credibility is another. So I did all the typical creator monetization things, but LinkedIn can actually be an accelerant to this. When we talk about brand partnerships in the creator space, people that work on the corporate side of influencer partnerships, so on corporate marketing teams, they live on LinkedIn. They all have profiles on LinkedIn. They all have their emails listed on LinkedIn. That's how you can get in touch with these people. And it's honestly a way to get taken more seriously. If you email a brand rather than DMing them on Instagram, it comes off in a much more professional way. Like you are approaching it from a business person's mindset. And you need to build credibility to be a creator building a business. And there are real examples of this. Believe it or not, Snoop Dogg is on LinkedIn. When he posts a lot, I seriously doubt it's him because it does not sound like him at all. It's probably his manager. But the point is he recognizes that need for credibility. Same thing with Ryan Reynolds. He is also on LinkedIn, mostly for his company, Mint Mobile. And you can leverage both visibility and credibility to begin building a business. I talked about both of those things in the beginning, but visibility is just about getting in front of the right people. Credibility is making sure that those people can trust you. The beauty of starting a business as a creator, though, is that you already have an audience. I turn my brand into opportunities. You can leverage being a creator to literally do anything. And these are just some of the things that I've been able to do as a personal brand. I became one of the youngest ever LinkedIn learning instructors. I've done over 50 plus speaking engagements at Harvard, UPenn, Fortune 500 companies. I was also the youngest founder to come through G Beta, the Generators program in Reno, Tahoe. And I also got internships, fellowships, 3 full-time job offers, and this thing that I'm about to talk about was a very surreal moment. 2 months ago, I was offered a C-suite level executive role at a venture-backed startup fresh off my graduation. And I was like, this is a moment where I'm like, this cannot be real. This is not my life. This is a simulation. I'm in a video game and I'm an NPC. But when I say I turn my brand into opportunities, I mean, you can literally do anything. And this is kind of loosely related to my personal brand, but that's me at the Formula One track. The second one is me at the Vegas Golden Knights T-Mobile Arena. And the third one is me at a conference that I got to go to for free because I got to go as an influencer. And the last one is me speaking at Harvard. You can make your brand into anything that you want it to be. There's really infinite power behind building a brand, and I'm just like a small example of what's possible with it. So I have a challenge for you guys. If you want to start building your brand, make your first post on LinkedIn today about your Tech Alley experience. Please tag me. I would love to read it, but that's my challenge for you guys today. So I kind of want to wrap up here with, we started with why, now I want to wrap up with why. 3 years ago, I was just another 17/18-year-old kid at UNR who had no idea, thought they had an idea of what they wanted to do with their life and thought they had a handle on everything, but really didn't at all. But most importantly, the thing that I realized as a freshman was that nobody really cares about what I have to say right now, and I'm just insignificant. I'm just another student who's studying CS at yet another state university. I am just a number. But what I realized is that I could make myself more than that, and I could make people listen to what I had to say and make what I said matter. And that's the power of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a platform that anyone can use. It's a level playing field. It doesn't matter what you studied, it doesn't matter where you studied, and it doesn't matter how you grew up. All that matters is the stories and the things that you're going to share online. And that can build not only your personal brand, but it can build a launch pad for basically anything you want to do. My interests, my goals, and my roadmap for my life have changed an infinite amount of times in the last 4 years. I honestly, if you asked me if this is what I would be doing 4 years ago, I would have told you that you were crazy because my interests have changed so much. But the point is, my personal brand has been lasting through all of that, and my personal brand has opened doors for me that I never could have opened before. I like to call it brand firepower. When people recognize your name and when people recognize you when you walk into a room, that's extremely powerful. And when you have positive things associated with your name, quite literally open any door that you want. And that's my spiel today. Thank you for coming and bearing with me. I really appreciate it. I'll take questions if you guys have any. Yeah.
How do you deal with a mental block of posting and figuring out what you want to post?
Okay, so I find that creator's block comes from a couple of sources. Number one, the fear of being perceived and what people will think of you. And I will say there's no easy way to get over that. And like everyone's like, oh, just post. Like, who cares what people say? That's a lot easier said than done. And I was telling my boyfriend earlier, I subject myself to criticism online every single day. That is my job. It's not easy to do, but the only piece of advice I can give there is keep your eye on the prize. Like, think of, if I thought of first of all, I had no idea what was possible from my brand a long time ago, but knowing what I know now, I know that would keep me motivated. And you can use me as an example. If you could achieve what I could achieve, maybe that could help motivate you. As a side note, as far as figuring out what to post, like I said, keep it simple. Ask yourself one question that you want to answer. The way that I started posting content on LinkedIn was I used to talk about being a Disney intern. That was my whole shtick. And I would ask myself, it was basically chronicling every single day of my internship, and I would ask myself the same question every day, which is, what is one thing that I learned today, or what is one thing I did today that I don't want to forget? And I'm going to put it out there. That's honestly the easiest way to get started is ask yourself a simple question and ask yourself the same question for the first 30 days of creating content and just answer that question. But that's kind of how I get over that creator's block. Anyone, any other questions? All right, cool. Thanks for coming.
Wait, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on premium and paying for that?
My thoughts on premium? I think it's worth it. It's mostly I would say it's most useful if you're a business person, specifically trying to send cold messages and leads, because that's really the best part of it. But also if you look into your work and look into your school, because a lot of schools and depending on who you work for, companies will pay for your LinkedIn premium. So it can be worth it, but always look for free options if you can.